James Richardson adjusted his expensive black suit as he walked through the grand ballroom of the Savoy Hotel in London. The crystal chandeliers sparkled above him, and the sound of classical music filled the air round him. Wealthy people in elegant clothes talked and laughed while holding wine glasses. This was the annual charity gala for children in need, and James was here because his company expected him to attend. At 42 years old, James had everything money could buy. His technology company was worth millions of pounds, and he lived in a huge mansion in the best part of London. But despite all his success, James felt empty inside. He had grown up in foster care, moving from one home to another until he was 18. No family had ever wanted to keep him permanently. This experience had made him cold and distant. He trusted no one and preferred to work alone. Tonight felt like any other charity event. James would write a large check, shake hands with a few important people, and leave early. He had done this routine dozens of times before. The cause was good, helping children who had difficult lives. But James felt disconnected from it all. He gave money because it was expected, not because he felt emotional about it. As James walked toward the donation table, he noticed the volunteers serving tea and small cakes to the guests. Most were older women from wealthy families who enjoyed helping with charity work. But one volunteer caught his attention. She was young, maybe 16 or 17, with beautiful auburn hair that caught the light. She moved gracefully between the guests, always smiling and making sure everyone felt welcome. James decided to get some tea, though he rarely drank it. As he approached the table, the young girl looked up at him with bright, kind eyes. When she turned her head slightly to reach for a teacup, James saw something that made his heart stop beating for a moment. There, on her left temple, was a crescent-shaped birthmark. It was exactly like his own birthmark, which he usually kept hidden. Under his hair, the mark was distinctive, curved like a small moon, with a darker center. James had never seen another person with a birthmark like his. The shock was so intense that James felt his hands begin to shake. The delicate china teacup he was holding slipped from his fingers and crashed to the marble floor, breaking into several pieces. The sound seemed very loud in the busy room. "Oh my goodness, are you all right, sir?" the girl asked immediately. She had a soft, caring voice with a slight London accent. Without hesitation, she came round the table and knelt down to collect the broken pieces, completely unconcerned about her dress getting dirty. James stood there, unable to move or speak properly. His mind was racing with questions and possibilities. Could this be real? Could there be someone else in the world with the same unusual birthmark? "I'm fine," he finally managed to say, though his voice was shaking badly. "I'm so sorry about the cup, please. Don't worry about cleaning it up." But the girl continued picking up the pieces carefully, making sure no one would step on them. "It's no problem at all," she said cheerfully. "These things happen. I'm just glad you're not hurt." James knelt down to help her, and for a moment they were very close. He could see the birthmark clearly now. It was identical to his own in every way. The same size, the same shape, the same position on the temple. His heart was beating so fast he thought other people might hear it. "What's your name?" he asked when they both stood up. "I'm Emma," she replied with a warm, genuine smile. "Emma Thompson. I volunteer here every month with the children's charity. I really enjoy helping out." James introduced himself, trying to sound normal though his mind was spinning with questions. "It's very kind of you to volunteer your time, Emma. Do you go to school nearby?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, I'm in my final year. I'm hoping to study medicine at university. though I'm not sure how I'll afford it yet." She paused, looking slightly sad for a moment. "I'm in foster care, you see, and I'll be 18 soon after that. I'll be on my own." The words hit James like a physical blow. Foster care, just like him, and she was about to age out of the system, just as he had done many years ago. The coincidences were too many to ignore. They talked for a few more minutes about her studies and her dream of becoming a doctor. James was amazed by her positive attitude despite her difficult circumstances. She spoke about helping sick children with such passion that he could see she would make an excellent doctor someday. As the evening continued, James found it impossible to concentrate on anything else. He kept looking across the room at Emma, watching her interact with the other guests. She was naturally kind and seemed to make everyone around her feel comfortable and happy. When the event finally ended, James said goodbye to Emma politely, but his mind was already working furiously. He had to know more about this girl and her birthmark. Could she possibly be related to him? Could she be family? That night, James lay in his large, empty bed, staring at the ceiling. He touched his own birthmark gently, something he had done since childhood when he felt lonely. For the first time in decades, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he was not alone in the world after all. The morning sun was shining through the tall windows of James Richardson's office when he made the most important phone call of his life. His hands were still shaking slightly as he dialed the number for London's most respected private investigation company. "I need you to find out everything about a young woman named Emma Thompson," James told the investigator. "She's about 16 or 17, in foster care, and volunteers at charity events. I need to know her background, her family history, everything." The investigator asked why James needed this information, but James could not explain about the birthmark without sounding crazy. "It's a personal matter," he said simply. "Money is no object. I need answers as quickly as possible." After hanging up the phone, James could not concentrate on his work. His mind kept returning to Emma and her bright smile. He had spent his whole life believing he was completely alone in the world. Now there was a chance, just a small chance, that he might have family after all. That weekend, James drove to the community center where Emma had mentioned she volunteered. It was a simple brick building in a working-class neighborhood, very different from the fancy hotel where they had met. James parked his expensive car across the street and watched through the large windows. Emma was inside, wearing casual clothes and an apron. She was helping serve lunch to elderly people who looked like they did not have much money. James watched as she chatted with each person, making them laugh and feel important. She seemed to remember everyone's names and asked about their families and health problems. Later, James saw Emma in the children's play area. She was on her knees, helping a small boy with a puzzle. When the boy finally got the pieces right, Emma clapped her hands and hugged him. The pure joy on her face made James feel emotional in a way he had not experienced in years. The next week, James made a decision that surprised even himself. He walked into the community center and asked to speak with the volunteer coordinator. "I would like to help out here," he told the woman behind the desk. "I have some free time, and I think it would be good for me to give back to the community." The woman looked surprised. James was wearing an expensive suit and clearly had money. Most of their volunteers were retired people or students, but she was happy to have help and quickly signed him up. When Emma saw James at the center the following Saturday, her face lit up with surprise and pleasure. "Mr. Richardson, what are you doing here?" she asked. "Please, call me James," he said with a smile. "I decided I wanted to do some volunteer work. You inspired me at the charity event. Emma looked genuinely pleased. That's wonderful. There's always so much to do here. The people who come here really need help and kindness. Over the following weeks, James and Emma worked together regularly. James helped serve meals and organized donations, while Emma focused on the children and elderly visitors. They often took their breaks together, sitting outside the center and talking. Emma told James about her foster families over the years. Some had been kind. Others had not cared much about her. She spoke about her dreams of becoming a doctor and opening a clinic for children who could not afford medical care. I know what it's like to need help and not have anyone to turn to, Emma said one afternoon. I want to make sure other children don't feel as alone as I sometimes do. James listened carefully to every word. He had never felt such a strong connection to another person. Emma's kindness and strength amazed him. Despite growing up without parents or stability, she had somehow kept her heart open to helping others. 3 weeks after hiring the investigator, James received a phone call that changed everything. He was in his office late on a Tuesday evening when his phone rang. Mr. Richardson, I have the information you requested about Emma Thompson, the investigator said. You might want to sit down for this. James sat heavily in his leather chair, his heart pounding. Emma Thompson is your biological sister, the investigator continued. Your birth mother was Margaret Richardson. She gave you up for adoption when you were 3 years old, and she gave up Emma when Emma was just 6 months old. James felt like he could not breathe. His sister. Emma was his sister. There's more, the investigator said gently. Your mother never married. She worked as a cleaning woman and struggled financially her whole life. She kept a small photo of both of you in her wallet, along with a note about your matching birthmarks. She died 5 years ago from cancer. That evening, James sat in his empty mansion, holding the old photograph the investigator had found. It showed 2 small children with identical crescent-shaped birthmarks on their temples. On the back, someone had written in faded ink, James, age 3, and Emma, age 6 months, my beautiful children. I hope they find each other someday. James touched his birthmark and thought about Emma. She was his sister, his only family in the world. But how could he tell her? How could he explain that he had been investigating her life without her knowledge? The truth felt like a heavy weight on his shoulders. He had found his family, but he was terrified of losing Emma's trust and friendship. That night, he made a promise to himself. He would find the right moment to tell Emma everything, hoping that their bond as brother and sister would be stronger than any confusion or hurt she might feel. James Richardson woke up every morning with the same heavy feeling in his chest. He knew Emma was his sister, but he could not find the right words to tell her. The secret felt like a stone in his stomach, getting heavier each day. He was afraid that if he told her the truth too quickly, she might think he was crazy or that he had been lying to her, instead of telling Emma immediately. James decided to become a better friend first. He wanted her to trust him completely before he shared such shocking news. He began thinking of small ways to help her without making it obvious. James quietly contacted the community center's director and made a large donation. He asked that the money be used to improve the programs Emma cared about most soon. The center had new books for the children's reading program and better equipment for the elderly exercise classes. Ma was delighted with these improvements, but had no idea who had paid for them. James also found out which foster home Emma was living in and made an anonymous donation to help with their expenses. He wanted to make sure Emma had everything she needed without her knowing the money came from him. The hardest part was acting normal around Emma when his heart was bursting with the desire to tell her they were family. Every time he saw her, he wanted to hug her and say, I'm your brother. But he forced himself to be patient. One Saturday morning, Emma mentioned that her school was having a science fair the following week. She had been working on a project about heart disease in children, inspired by her dream of becoming a doctor. "I probably won't win anything," Emma said sadly. "Some of the other students have parents who help them with expensive materials and research. I'm doing everything on my own." James felt a surge of protective anger. His sister deserved to have someone cheering for her, supporting her dreams. "Would it be all right if I came to watch?" he asked carefully. "I'd love to see your project." Emma's face brightened with surprise and joy. "You would really want to come. It's just a school science fair. Nothing fancy. I think anything you've worked on would be fascinating," James said sincerely. The night of the science fair, James sat in the school gymnasium surrounded by proud parents and families. He watched Emma explain her project to the judges, her eyes shining with passion as she talked about helping sick children. Her display was simple but well-researched, and her presentation was confident and caring. When Emma won first place, James cheered louder than anyone in the room. He felt tears in his eyes as he watched his sister accept her trophy. Emma looked into the audience and smiled directly at him. James felt his heart nearly burst with pride and love. After the ceremony, Emma ran up to him with her trophy in her hands. "I can't believe I won. Thank you so much for coming, James. It means the world to me." As they walked to the parking lot together, Emma suddenly stopped and looked at him seriously. "James, why are you so kind to me? I don't understand why someone like you would care about a foster kid like me." James felt his throat tighten. This was the moment he had been both hoping for and dreading. "You remind me of myself when I was younger," he said, which was completely true. "I know what it's like to feel alone in the world, to not have anyone cheering for you." Emma nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. "It's hard sometimes, isn't it? Not having a real family." "Yes," James whispered. "It's very hard." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Emma touched the birthmark on her temple, something James had noticed she did when she was thinking deeply. "Sometimes I wonder if I have family somewhere," she said quietly. "I have this birthmark, and I always hope that maybe someone else might have one just like it. Maybe a brother or sister who would recognize me someday." James felt like he couldn't breathe. His own birthmark seemed to burn under his hair. This was the perfect moment to tell her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he managed to say, "That's a beautiful thought, Emma." Over the following weeks, James and Emma spent more time together. They worked side by side at the community center, and James began to feel like the older brother he had always wanted to be. Emma, without knowing the truth, began to see James as the family she had always longed for. They had long conversations about everything: Emma's dreams, her fears, her memories of different foster homes. James shared stories about his business success, but also about the loneliness he had felt growing up. They understood each other in a way that felt natural and comfortable. One evening in late autumn, as they were cleaning up after a community dinner, Emma shared her biggest worry with James. "I'm 18 next month," she said, looking scared. "I'll have to leave my foster home then. I don't know where I'll go or how I'll afford university. I've been having nightmares about being homeless and never becoming a doctor." James wanted to immediately offer to pay for everything: her housing, her education, her entire future. But he knew that money alone wouldn't heal the wounds of growing up without family. Emma needed to know she had a brother who loved her, not just a wealthy man who felt sorry for her. That night, James made a decision. He would tell Emma the truth about who he was. He would explain about the birthmark, about their mother. about how he had been looking for a family his whole life just like she had. He would trust that their connection as siblings would be stronger than any shock or confusion she might feel. The time had come to bring his sister home. The phone call came on a rainy Tuesday evening in November. James was working late in his office when his mobile phone rang. He recognized Emma's number immediately and answered quickly. But what he heard made his heart sink. Emma was crying so hard she could barely speak. "James," she sobbed into the phone. "I don't know what to do. My foster family just told me I have to leave tomorrow. They're moving to Scotland, and they can't take me with them." James gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean you have to? Leave tomorrow? Where will you go?" "I don't know." Emma cried. "I'm 17, but I'll be 18 in 3 weeks. The social services say there's no other foster home available for such a short time. I think I'll have to sleep in a shelter or maybe on the streets." James felt panic rising in his chest. His sister was going to be homeless, and he had the power to help her immediately. But he also knew this was the moment he had been both hoping for and dreading. He couldn't let Emma live on the streets when he could give her home. But telling her the truth would change everything between them. "Emma, listen to me," James said as calmly as he could. "You're not going to be homeless. I need to tell you something very important. Can you meet me at the small park near the community center? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Emma sniffled and agreed. James grabbed his coat and drove through the rain. His heart pounding with nerves. He had practiced this conversation in his mind hundreds of times. But now that the moment was here, he felt terrified. When James arrived at the park, he saw Emma sitting alone on a bench under a street lamp. She was holding a small backpack and a plastic bag with what looked like all her belongings. Her hair was wet from the rain, and her eyes were red from crying. She looked so young and scared that James felt his heart break. "Thank you for coming," Emma said quietly as James sat down beside her. "I'm sorry for crying on the phone. I just don't know what to do." James looked at his sister and took a deep breath. "Emma, before we talk about where you'll stay tonight, I need to tell you something. I've been keeping a secret from you, and I can't keep it anymore." Emma looked at him with curious, worried eyes. "What kind of secret?" James felt his hands shaking as he prepared to change both their lives forever. "3 months ago, when I first saw you at the charity event, something happened that I couldn't explain. When you turned your head, I saw your birthmark." Emma touched her temple automatically, the way she always did when she was nervous. "My birthmark. What about it?" "I recognized it," James said, his voice becoming stronger. "I recognized it because I have one exactly like it." Emma stared at him, confused. "What do you mean, exactly like it?" James reached up and brushed his hair aside, revealing the crescent-shaped birthmark on his own left temple. Emma's eyes went wide, and she leaned forward to look more closely. "That's impossible," she whispered. "How can we have the same birthmark?" James felt tears starting in his eyes. "After I met you, I hired a private investigator to find out more about your background. Emma, we're not just friends, we're family. You're my little sister." The words seemed to hang in the air between them. Emma sat very still, staring at James's birthmark and then touching her own. The rain continued to fall round them, but neither of them noticed. "Your sister," Emma repeated slowly. "But how is that possible? I thought I was alone in the world. Our birth mother was named Margaret Richardson," James explained gently. "She was very young and couldn't afford to raise 2 children. She gave me up when I was 3 years old, and she gave you up when you were just a baby. She hoped we would both find good homes and better lives." Emma's face went through several emotions: surprise, confusion, and then something that looked like hurt. "You've known this for 3 months?" she asked, her voice getting louder. "You've been watching me and investigating me, and you didn't tell me." James felt his stomach drop. "I wanted to tell you, but I was scared you wouldn't believe me, or that you'd think I was crazy." Scared, Emma stood up suddenly, her eyes flashing with anger. "You were scared? Do you know how many nights I've cried myself to sleep wondering if I had any family in the world? Do you know how many times I've looked at other people's families and wish I belonged somewhere? Emma, please let me explain." "Explain what?" Emma's voice was rising, and tears were streaming down her face. "Explain how you let me worry about being completely alone, while you already knew I had a brother. Explain how you watched me like I was some kind of experiment." James reached out to touch her arm. But Emma stepped back quickly. "Don't touch me," she said. "You've been lying to me for months. How can I trust anything you say?" "I wasn't lying," James said desperately. "I was trying to protect you. I wanted us to be friends first. So when I told you the truth, you'd know I cared about you as a person. Not just because we're related." Emma shook her head, looking more hurt than angry now. "You don't understand. I would have wanted to know. Immediately, I would have been happy to know I had a brother. Instead, you made me feel like I was still alone in the world." "Emma, please don't leave," James begged. "I know I made a mistake. But I was trying to do the right thing. I need time to think," Emma said, picking up her bags. "I can't trust you right now. James, I need to figure out how I feel about all of this." Emma walked away into the rain, leaving James sitting alone on the bench. He had finally told his sister the truth, but instead of bringing them together, it had pushed them apart. As he watched her disappear into the darkness, James realized that love wasn't about having the perfect plan or waiting for the right moment. It was about being honest, even when honesty was frightening and difficult. For 7 long days and nights, James searched for Emma everywhere he could think of. He drove through the streets of London, looking for her familiar auburn hair and worried face. He checked the community centre, the local shelters, and even the school where she had won the science fair. Nobody had seen her. James barely slept during those 7 days. He kept thinking about them as sleeping on cold streets or in dangerous places. He imagined her being hungry and scared, and it made him feel sick with worry. He had found his sister after 42 years of being alone, and now he had lost her again because of his own fear and poor decisions. On the 8th day, James decided to try looking in places outside the city centre. He drove to the quieter areas of London, hoping Emma might have found somewhere peaceful to think, as he passed a small cemetery on the outskirts of the city. Something made him stop the car. James walked through the iron gates of the cemetery. Not sure why he felt drawn to this place. The afternoon sun was shining through the old trees, and the only sounds were birds singing and his footsteps on the gravel path. As he walked deeper into the cemetery, he saw a familiar figure sitting on the ground beside a simple grey headstone. Emma was there, wearing the same clothes she had worn a week ago, looking tired and sad. Her small backpack was beside her, and she was holding something in her hands. When she heard James approaching, she looked up but didn't seem surprised to see him. "I found her," Emma said quietly, her voice hoarse from crying. "Our mother, Margaret Richardson, she died 5 years ago." James felt his legs go weak. He sat down on the grass beside Emma and read the words carved into the headstone. "Margaret Richardson, 1965 to 2020. Beloved mother." Always remembered. Emma held up what she had been holding in her hands. It was a small, faded photograph showing 2 young children with matching birthmarks. "The cemetery keeper has been very kind to me," Emma said. He told me that a woman used to come here every year on July 15th and October 3rd. Those are our birthdays, James. She never forgot us." James stared at the photograph, seeing himself as a 3-year-old boy and Emma as a baby. Their mother had kept this picture all her life, even though she had given them away. She remembered our birthdays. He whispered. The cemetery keeper said she would sit here for hours, talking to the headstone about her children. Emma continued. She told him she hoped we had found good families and that we were happy. She said she looked for people with our birthmarks everywhere she went, hoping she might see us again someday. Both James and Emma sat in silence, crying for the mother they had never really known but who had loved them from far away. They were also crying for all the years they had been apart, growing up in different foster homes when they could have been together. "I'm sorry, Emma," James said finally, his voice shaking with emotion. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth from the very beginning. I was so afraid of losing you that I almost lost you anyway." Emma looked at her brother, seeing the real pain in his eyes. "I was angry because I thought you saw me as some kind of project or charity case, not as real family." "You are not a project," James said firmly, taking her hand. "You're my sister, and I love you. I've loved you since the moment I saw that birthmark. I've been looking for a family my whole life. And when I found you, I was too scared to believe it was real." Emma squeezed his hand and smiled through her tears. "I love you too, James. I always felt like something important was missing in my life. And now I know what it was. It was you, from that day forward." James and Emma began building a real relationship as brother and sister. James didn't just offer to pay for Emma's university education, though he did that too. More importantly, he was there for all the big and small moments in her life. He attended her graduation from medical school, cheering louder than anyone when she received her diploma. He was there when she had difficult days and when she celebrated achievements. Emma taught James that being family wasn't about having money or making grand gestures. It was about showing up when someone needed you, listening when they had problems, and sharing both happy and sad moments together. She showed him that love was about being present, not about being perfect. James supported Emma through medical school and helped her achieve her dream of becoming a doctor. But Emma also helped James become a better person. She taught him how to be kind without expecting anything in return, and how to find joy in helping others. 5 years later, Dr. Emma Thompson opened a free medical clinic for children in foster care. The clinic was located in the same neighborhood as the community center where James and Emma had first become friends. At the opening ceremony, both siblings spoke to the crowd about their journey. "My brother and I lost our childhood together," Emma said to the audience, "but we found each other when we needed it most." This clinic is proof that it's never too late to build a family and help others find hope. James watched his sister with incredible pride as she spoke. He touched his birthmark gently, thinking about how much their lives had changed. The mark that had once represented his loneliness and questions about his past now symbolized the unbreakable bond between him and Emma. As the ceremony ended and people began touring the new clinic, James and Emma stood together, looking at all the children and families who would be helped by Emma's dream. They had found each other.